got something that is entirely unique that I've ever seen anything quite like this.
Major League Baseball has been trying to innovate different ways to capture a fan base. I think this one's going to be as unique as I've ever seen.
It certainly has people talking. That's what MLB is looking to do.
If you like velocity and speed, the pitching matchup's going to fit the race cars.
Major League Baseball takes over an iconic NASCAR track.
Baseball, Bristol,
and America's pastime has never been faster, larger, louder. The MLB Speedway Classic, Saturday at 6 Eastern on 5.
Bristol, Tennessee at the Bristol Motor Speedway. It's going to be a historic event. The largest regular season crowd in MLB history will be on hand for the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. And my guest today is Fox MLB's lead game analyst. He is a Cy Young Award winner, a member of the 3,000 Strikeout Club. It's my pleasure to welcome to the program the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, John, a pleasure to have you on. And we've got something that is entirely unique happening on Saturday. I can't say in my 50 years as a baseball fan that I've ever seen anything quite like this. A baseball game being played inside a motor speedway. John, how much are you looking forward to this, and how special and unconventional do you think this game is going to be on Saturday?
Yeah, I've been part of some pretty neat things so far. Major League Baseball has been trying to innovate different ways to capture a fan base, whether it's London, whether it's the Field of Dreams, whether it's Rickwood down in Birmingham. And I think this one's going to be as unique as I've ever seen, just because the optics and the place where we're doing it. Look, there's a lot of fans. I think there's some crossover fans from NASCAR and the Atlanta Braves, specifically being the area that most of these fans will be coming from. And then the Cincinnati Reds, will not too far away as well. So I'm looking forward to it. The aesthetics of it look absolutely amazing. And, it's a one of a kind. I know that way back out in the, they had the game at the Coliseum, I think between the Dodgers, and they drew a lot of fans there in a unique stadium that had a very short left field fence. But the dimensions here are going to be pretty much like a regular baseball stadium. So other than the little interruption in the schedule for these two teams, I think they're going to see it as a really neat venture.
85,000 fans, in excess of 85,000 fans expected to be in attendance. We've got tickets that have been sold to people in all 50 states. They say people are coming from 4 different continents, John. So it certainly has people talking. That's what MLB is looking to do, is create some buzz, and they've done it, certainly. And as you said, the Reds and the Braves are a logical fit. I grew up in Kentucky, and I know from experience that I was surrounded primarily by Cincinnati Reds fans and Atlanta Braves fans. So the matchup makes a lot of sense. And we've got a couple of Tennessee kids that are going to be towing the rubber on Saturday as well, in Spencer Strider and Chase Burns. John, let me ask you this. I'm sure, have never seen anything like this before, because none of us have, but going all the way back to your amateur days growing up, what's the most unusual ballpark that you ever played in?
Well, I would think that there were some minor league cities, and the one that I was with, the Detroit Tigers, the Glens Falls AA team, had one of the most unique, in the middle of the neighborhood stadiums, where left field was about 260 with a netting that you had to hit it over, and right field was like 440. Like, it was just a weird dimension, 420. I forget. I just know that I tried to get everybody to hit it to right field. And then we played in Cooperstown at the Hall of Fame stadium there, which was very, very small, but very unique. So I think for me that it was more traditional. I grew up playing in the traditional kind of cookie cutter stadiums that were multi-purpose football and baseball, like Riverfront, Fulton County Stadium, Three Rivers. There were more cookie cutter stadiums that were kind of developed for multi-sports. And now at the end of my career, you start seeing new stadiums, new architecture, and different kind of designs. And so, when I think back, I'm pretty spoiled at the Astrodome where you had to hit it 400 feet just about everywhere to hit a home run. Whereas nowadays that's different. The ballparks are kind of tailored differently, and that's what's unique about baseball. Every other sport has to have pretty much the same dimensions. Baseball does not. It can kind of grandfather in Fenway and of course Wrigley Field, and now we're having these different venues all over the place. And I think it's really, really unique for baseball.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 440 in right field. Tough to be a left-handed batter playing half your games in that part. John, one of the things that has always impressed me the most about you is the fact that you were an outstanding starting pitcher for so many years, Cy Young Award winner, 24-game winner, and then you had Tommy John at age 34, I believe, and you were a dominant closer for 3 years for Bobby Cox and those unbelievable Braves teams that you were on for so long. A 55 save season included among those 3 years. And then you transitioned very successfully back to being a starting pitcher after that. Can you talk just a little bit about what it was like making the transition to being a closer, succeeding fabulously in that role? You're the best closer in baseball for a stretch there while you were in that role. And then going right back to being a starting pitcher, at least statistically, like nothing had ever happened. How challenging was that?
Yeah, it was very challenging. I kind of did it as a way to help the team in 2001 because I had some hiccups coming back from Tommy John, and I finished the September season, I think, facing saving 10 out of 11 games, and thought, yeah, I'll just return to starting. And negotiations didn't go that way, and the general manager didn't see it that way. He wanted me to be the closer, and I was a little bit taken back by that after 14 years of starting. And everybody got enamored with the thought that I could be the closer and this might be the best thing that ever happens to the Atlanta Braves. Well, at first I felt a little slighted because I'm like, what happened to those 14 years as a starter? But I wanted to win championships, so I gave it a run. And 3 years, is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. There was a lot of physical things that weren't technically talked about that interrupted that first season. My first month was horrible as a closer. Everyone forgets it because I ended up with 55 saves. But I had a thumb issue. I had no ability to throw innings in spring training. I basically had to fake it for a month. I had to learn on the job, on the task really quickly. Fortunately, I've been there, done that, and was able to kind of rally that season into a pretty remarkable season. And then at the All-Star break, by the next year, I had 34 saves. Like, that's just an impossible trend to continue. And I ended up being on the IL a couple times just because my elbow was starting to feel the wrath of all those games. But what people forget is that, when I was a starter and we had a much different starting rotation, we never not got out of the first round. But as a closer, we never got out of the first round. And I felt like it's the chicken and the egg. And so, he asked me a question. Our GM asked me, what makes us better? And I said, me back in the starting rotation. So at the end of the day, it was an unbelievable testimony to what you can do when you set your mind to it, but it was not easy. And I think my case study is a really bad one because they tried to use this with all the young pitchers in the game without experience, thinking they could go from starter to closer. And it just it was not fair to them. I had 14 years under my belt. I had an advantage going into the role. These young men that got pushed back and forth, they had no identity, and it really kind of crushed a lot of careers.
Well, John, I certainly understand your perspective on wanting to be a starting pitcher, and particularly as it related to your team's chances in the playoffs, because you're one of the greatest postseason pitchers in history. We're talking about a 15-4 record, 2.67 ERA, and 209 innings pitched. You had an entire season of just postseason that we could add to your career record there. And, I think all of us remember, at least anybody who is of the age, everybody remembers Game 7 of the 1991 World Series. Jack Morris, 10-inning complete game. And as I have tweeted before, Jack Morris seems like a biblical character now, throwing a 10-inning complete game in Game 7 of the World Series because Paul Skeens is out there throwing 85 pitches because that's just the era that we live in now. You went 7 1/3 shutout in that game as well. Bobby Cox went to the bullpen in the 8th inning, but you also put up goose eggs that night as well. Do you ever reflect on what might have happened if Bobby had been a little more like Tom Kelly that night and left you out there?
I do. I didn't have the age or the experience that Jack Morris did when he told his manager to get, off his mound. He was a veteran that I grew up watching for the Tigers, and I was coming back on 3 days rest, and I was younger. And certainly the second half for me was filled with unbelievable success when I didn't have success in the first half. People forget I was 2-11 in the first half. I went 12-2 and then was virtually unbeatable the last month and a half of the season. I was very frustrated when Bobby came out. I didn't want to come out of that game. It was the only jam I got in, but I understood why later as you sit back and reflect. It's the game everybody dreams of, pitching. At least I did. I grew up thinking about these games. And the most amazing thing about sports, it can be cruel and it can be unfair, and statistics can have not really the tell the whole story. But in 3 7th games, it still blows my mind. I gave up 2 runs and won 1 game. Like that's hard to fathom when you get to that level. And you pitch those games with the ultimate, desire to move your team on or win a World Series. And to think that 1 or 2 things could have happened, changed the destiny of our whole organization. And who knows, we could have had 3, 4, 5 rings. I mean, it's not out of question for us to have 5 rings with that run and the pitching we had, but we just didn't get certain things done. And I look back and I still think, how is that possible to not win those games? But we won 2 of the 3. The third one obviously was the most important one, and we didn't get a chance to win that thanks to Jack.
Well, John, thank you so much. Would love to have you on again sometime, take a deeper dive into your great career, because there's a lot of questions that I could ask you. But this Saturday, coverage beginning at 6 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. First pitch, 7:15 Eastern time. John, I'll be tuned in, as so many of us will. Looking forward to a great broadcast and a great evening there at Bristol Motor Speedway. Thank you so much for making some time for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you like velocity and speed, the pitching matchup's going to fit the race cars.
Sounds great, my friend. Have a good one. We appreciate you. He is the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. Football is back. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. The Chargers and the Lions tonight. July's not even over, and we've got preseason NFL football. Dan Campbell and Jim Harbaugh squaring off. And I don't care if it's February at the Super Bowl or if it's July. It is always welcome to see NFL action being played anywhere. The Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, a long-time tradition in the NFL. Trey Lance is going to be in action. I know that my buddy Brent and his lovely wife Kay up in Minnesota are going to be excited to see Trey Lance. Family friend Hendon Hooker will be in action tonight. So the NFL is underway. Football's back, and it's got my mind on football today, my friends. And I remember the first essential handheld device. I have an iPhone, and I'm kind of, I'm an elitist about it. If other people have Galaxies, Androids, whatever it is, I always feel kind of sorry for them. If you're an Android user, maybe one day you'll be able to step up to the big leagues, my friend. But the first essential handheld device that I remember is this sweet bastard. If you bought Mattel Football 2 for $32.88, which is what it went for back in the day, and I don't know what the equivalent of that is in today's dollars. Jared, work on that for me. It was money well spent, because that fucker probably still works today. There are a lot of people who will attest to the fact that those little red blips are still blipping and the little song still playing when you get into the end zone for a touchdown. But my God, one of the best pages in the Sears catalog right there. Just have a look at it. I see Mattel baseball down there. I see Mattel basketball down there. Some of us are old enough, we remember Mattel Football 1, which was white, and you couldn't pass. Until football 2 was the dawn of the passing revolution in the NFL. It was a precursor of Dan Marino coming into the league just a few years later. There was nothing better than lofting a pass and then just clicking for your little life as you attempted to score a touchdown. You had no idea what fucking yard line you were on. You just kept hitting buttons until somebody tackled you or you scored a touchdown. And by God, get off my lawn. We liked it that way, is what I have to say. Our national nightmare is over, my friends. We have been reunited with the sport that we named football because soccer wasn't good enough for us. The rest of the world calls soccer football. We created a better game, and we called that football. The next Thursday that will not have football action being played is January the 15th, 2026. Does that make you feel as good as it makes me feel? Ronnie T-Shirts has probably got a blissful look on his face right now. The next month that we will not have an NFL game is March of 2026. Hall of Fame game today, the NFL opener in 5 weeks. 5 short weeks, my friends. Just 35 days. Kansas City will be playing the Chargers in Brazil. You ever heard of Declan McKenna? There's a couple of you that didn't expect that reference. You're out there. Most of you are wondering what the fuck I'm talking about. Look it up. It's a fine song. Red Zone in 38 days. Super Bowl 60 will be in 192 days. Super Bowl 60. Good Lord. What is that LX for my Roman numerals enthusiasts out there in the world? How the fuck are we at 60? I've never felt older in my life. That's the only downside. The first Super Bowl that I remember, first one that I watched, was Super Bowl 12. Dallas Cowboys and Denver Broncos. So, geez, Louise, Super Bowl 60. While we're talking about football, let's talk about an NFL legend that doesn't get talked about enough. And I'm speaking of number 29, one of the greatest running backs in the history of professional football. He's a pretty good college running back as well. Eric Dickerson. Really doesn't get spoken about a lot these days. He was absolutely dominant. Of course, he was the second man to run for over 2,000 yards in a season. And to this day, he holds the NFL record for most yards rushing in a season. 2,105 yards in 1984 with Jeff Kemp playing quarterback. Running for 2,105 yards with Jeff Kemp under center. We ought to give him credit for at least another 100 yards for that. And look at that beautiful screenshot right there, my brothers and sisters. Running over the infield grass there at, I don't know, is that a Rams home game? Is that at Shea Stadium or is that at, yeah, it's probably at Shea Stadium, I would say. They're right. They're playing the Jets from what I can gather. Anyway, Eric Dickerson was absolutely filthy. And God, I miss it. You know, my buddy Jim Everett, whose career in Los Angeles overlapped a little bit with Eric Dickerson, has been very clear to me that he was not a fan of playing over baseball fields, that it really wasn't great for him doing his job. But for me as a fan watching from home, not as the guy who was trying to orchestrate the offense, I always loved seeing football played over a baseball diamond in September, back in the days of the glorious multi-purpose stadiums. Football's back, and that means that Josh Allen is back. And take a look at this. Josh Allen, with some real respect here that he's showing to our armed service members. Look at that. Taking off his cap, making a point of shaking hands and greeting each one of the soldiers individually as he signs autographs. I got to tell you, Josh Allen is an absolute class act. If you follow what this guy does off the field very closely at all, he is a great quarterback. He's the MVP of the NFL, but I think he's an even better human being. I have seen him take extra time for children. This is very characteristic for him. to make time for fans and to make them feel special. Obviously, he's given special attention to the soldiers there, but you see him making time for the kids and for the other fans. I've seen him take time with special needs fans on multiple occasions. He's just a genuine good guy. And yeah, I know when a player is great on the field, it doesn't necessarily matter to us whether the person is a great human being or not. But if you're like me, and you probably are to some extent, it's just more fun to root for somebody that you believe is a good person. And Josh Allen fits that category. And now I want to welcome to the program a man whose favorite NFL player when he was a kid was also the star player of the Buffalo Bills, and who turned out to be maybe not quite as good of a person as Josh Allen. I welcome to the program now the international streaming star who joins me from Nashville, Tennessee. He is, of course, Ronnie T-Shirts. Ronnie, O.J. Simpson would give you special attention sometimes, but it might not have been the kind of special attention that you were bargaining for.
No, dude. I'll tell you, what you just said, I think the older I get, the more important kind of the holistic person is to me. It's like when you're 22, 28, like I don't care if you're a good person. I just want to know, can you ball? But now, like I look at Josh Allen and I'm like, oh, I want him for a son-in-law. Like I want Tyler to marry this guy. I know he's already taken, but it's like, my God, like that kid was raised right. Like kudos to his parents.
I desperately want a graphic under you right now that says Ronnie T-Shirts just wants to know if you can ball. It's all that matters.
I'm sure Dylan will have that up.
Just get down to the bottom line. We don't give a flying fuck about anything else. But no,
now, interestingly,
it makes a difference.
Well, Skip Bayless doesn't care.
Scheffler.
Skip Bayless doesn't care.
Well, yeah. Well, Skip Bayless would prefer if you were an asshole. Actually,
correct.
Because he equates being an asshole with being committed ruthlessly to winning.
Correct.
And he uses Jordan as an example. And look, Michael Jordan. I'm not saying Michael Jordan is an asshole, but Michael Jordan certainly has asshole tendencies that he's not shy about leaning into.
At least asshole adjacent.
Like it suits him. Asshole adjacent. Doesn't pay off his golfing wagers, among other things. Yeah, he's asshole adjacent.